Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Superconscious Sundays, episode 8. I am Caryn Terres. I'm Superconscious Leadership Mentor, known as the Dragon Doula, and I am here every Sunday to teach you a little bit more about how to actually be someone who lives within heaven on earth, who is able to show up as the example of what it means to actually be the change that you want to see in the world. And today's live stream is all about how to actually own the truth of who you truly are. So, for many of you, you've heard this phrase, this saying for years at this point. I know who you are. I know what you are. I know how you serve. And we break that down every week. I know who you are. You are a fractal of the divine. I know what you are. You are the divine manifested in form. And I know how you serve, meaning I know that you sing your own song, you radiate your own unique frequency. So, today we're going to be talking about that who you are, who you truly are as an aspect of the divine. And we're going to talk about it in a way that's going to really help a lot of light workers in this community, a lot of energy healers who are just not sure how to show up in this really intense time in the culture that is not their light working culture. They don't want to offend anyone in the BIPOC community. They don't want to piss anyone off in the big wigs, like the people in power. So there's this kowtowing that's occurring because there's a lot of preaching going on and not a lot of being. There's a lot of this is how you should do it, and then you go look in their personal lives and no one's doing it, and then they're wondering why life is not working out for them in the way that they want. Now there are a few exceptions to this rule, as always, but as someone who works with a lot of people in a lot of demographics, people who've never heard of superconscious, they've never read Carl Jung, they've never experienced a Reiki healing or anything like that. That's one branch of my clientele. And then the other branch of my clientele are the healers, the Reiki healers, the coaches, the transcendental meditation teachers, all of that. And I'm able to work with both groups so seamlessly because I don't change. I don't change, right? I'm not pitching myself to one group or the other. The people who come to me are the ones who know that they're supposed to work with me and they're supposed to learn from me. But the way that I teach is that I am all that I preach to be. And I don't really get up on a pedestal and preach. Yeah, sure, I show up on Sunday. So, I've got a few people from around the world who call me their Sunday morning pastor, but that's in jest, right? It's just because it's on Sunday. I never do anything during these lives that is meant to condemn, that is meant to terrify you, that is meant to try to convince you of something else. All I do is show up once a week for 30 to 60 minutes and give you a new perspective. Give you a perspective that has been able to help me and thousands of people all over the world really own the truth of who they are as a fractal of the divine. We're going to talk a little bit about the what you are as the divine manifest, just because they kind of interplay with each other. But who we all truly are is God, forgetting that we're God. But that doesn't mean that I'm ever going to walk up to someone who's just lost a loved one to police brutality and tell them, hey, you created your reality. That's literally never going to happen. And yet, when I go this week, I have unfollowed probably 24 people on Instagram who are influencers in the energy worker community, the light grid workers, like the grid workers, the light workers, the whatever, because that's exactly what they're fucking saying. That's exactly what they are using their white privilege, which I am white, obviously. They're using that white privilege to preach this idea of sovereignty, to preach this idea of new earth, to preach at these people, you're choosing your reality with no compassion, no understanding, no desire to learn, because they're so focused on this is new earth. This is how it goes. We don't have racism. We don't have sexism. We don't have any of that in new earth. So because we don't have any of that in new earth, I'm going to act and pretend like it doesn't fucking exist right now. That is not showing up as Shiva. That is not showing up as Ma Durga. That is not showing up with the compassion of Christ, which is what light workers really are, right? The Christ manifest as each of us. The Christ purely meaning the aspect of the divine that considers itself separate from the all. That's it. And that's what we've done. We think that there's separation between us and God, us and the universe, us and source, whatever word it is that makes you most comfortable. And there's not separation. We are that. We've just forgotten. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I know it's pretty intense and down and dirty, but you know what? It's a down and dirty world right now. And I'm really tired. I'm tired of watching the pure hypocrisy occurring within the energy community, energy healing community, the life coaching community, the new earth building community, because it's a lot of hypocrisy, it's a lot of bullshit, and it's a lot of preaching without any action. There is no there's no joie de vivre in the way that these people are showing up. They're showing up as not people that I want to be consider myself a part of that community. Let's just say that. Like I am genuinely, I don't want to say the word embarrassed, but that's probably the closest to the feeling that I have because it's not full embarrassment, but like how on earth are we going to get the majority of the population over to understanding that they are fractals of the divine manifested in form when those of us who already know it are preaching at them and telling them that their hurt and their loss and their pain and their suffering are all an illusion. Even though we know it. Like we know, I know that suffering and pain is an illusion. I cured myself of fibromyalgia. I've cured myself of huge amounts of self-worth issues. I helped hundreds of clients around the world do the same thing. The worthiness, knowing your worth as an aspect of the divine, that is what I teach in the very depths of what it is I do within the transcendental body work and everything else that I do. The core is knowing your worth as an aspect of the divine manifested in form, here singing your own song, radiating your own unique frequency. The uniqueness of the frequency is what creates a magnet, and the magnetism is what's going to call the people that you are soul contracted to help awaken to you. Showing up and getting on and telling all of the Black trans community that they chose their fate and that's why they're getting beat to death? Absolutely not. Like, never. Don't ever do that because that is not showing compassion. Christ did not go around preaching to people to be like, oh, by the way, people with leprosy that I'm going to come heal, that was your choice, right? That is so degrading and holier than thou, and looks like a lot of the fucking world religions around here that we don't want to be associated with either because they're money grubbing, power hungry assholes, right? So, how do we actually do this? How do we do it? We're going to talk about that in just a second, but I do want to light my candle. I do want to do our incense, so hold on. Kind of got on a roll. Forgot some things. So, we have our lighter. We're going to light this candle for open, compassionate communication, for true understanding of who we are as the divine manifested here on this planet to help ascend the entire global consciousness to higher realms where we really understand and know that we are all gods and goddesses of our own universe. And we do it in a way that compassionately brings all of the world to that critical mass consciousness where it just becomes common knowledge, the same way that it's common knowledge that the earth is round or that time is relative or any of the other things in science that have always been crazy. Like that's not true. And then a couple decades later, they're able to prove it. Okay. And then from there, we have our incense. Whew. And just taking the incense, bringing all polarities into the singularity, creating a sacred time and space for us to just have an open, honest communication with each other, and to know that you are always welcome to follow your own path. Take what be a grown up. Take what you need and leave the rest. And let's have just a beautiful, 20, 30 minutes together while we have this conversation. And while I drink a bunch of water. Oh my gosh, come on. There we go. Oh my gosh, so thirsty. So, preaching the example would be if the amount, I guess let's back up. Preaching doesn't work. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. Preaching doesn't work for most people in this day and age because most of us have enough religious based trauma somewhere in our either our personal life right now or in our past lives or in our ancestry of religious persecution that you actually look at the general population, at least here in America. Now, I haven't looked at the census data for other countries, but the census data in America shows that nearly a third of Americans do not consider themselves religious, and another third consider themselves somewhat religious, right? So they're those Catholics that show up on Easter and Christmas Eve, and that's it, right? They've been baptized somewhere, but they're not actually active within their community, but they would still consider themselves a part of that community. And then there's a third that would consider themselves actively involved in religious communities. So when you look at just that, the ideas that we're teaching as super conscious leaders, the ideas that we're teaching as energy healers, light workers, grid workers, those here to way showers, right, to bring about the age of ascension, the new golden age of miracles. We have a lot to work with in here. We have a lot of ways that we can really show up. But again, that's being the example, meaning you don't just talk, right? You don't just go and talk about knowing that you do this energy work, right? You don't just show up and flash your fancy house around and flash your fancy boyfriend around and flash all this stuff and say, and this is what you get when you remember that you're sovereign, loves. This is what you get when you actually do the work. This is what you get. Like, you're not, that's baiting people. It's the exact same thing that religion is going to do, where they're like, get your own kingdom in heaven, right? I live in Utah, so the Mormons believe that you get your own planet in the celestial kingdom. There's 3 levels of heaven, and then there's the void. Um, so telling people this is how good your life, you're going to get all these monies and you're going to have all these random checks coming to you. Preaching it for like that is literally preaching the same thing as exaltation in the heavenly kingdoms. The energy of it, right? Because you're probably saying, no, 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 but Caryn, your life does get better. You're someone that's life did get better. What are you talking about? You're right. My life has gotten exponentially better since I woke up to the fact that I'm the one who's writing my own story and the writer of this melodrama called my life. Absolutely, my life has gotten better. But I have never once, ever discredited the pain and suffering that it took me to get here. That is the part that so many in the community sweep under the rug. They're like, I'm a new person, I'm a new being, none of that shit matters anymore. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to talk about the fact that I was bullied to the point of being suicidal by the time I was 7, right? I'm not going to talk about the fact that I've been mistaken for a man for most of my life, even though I was born and still am biologically a woman. They're not going to talk about the fact that they had an eating disorder or their autoimmune diseases, right? Or if they do, it's so brief. Just like the tiniest little, like, I did this, and then now look at how good my life is. And you can do it too. Come by my course, right? No, just no. Like, But songs in my head, stop, just stop. That's what, like, who you are is who you are. Like, you are a mumbled, jumbled mess of emotions and sinew and flesh here with this gangula behind your head, your eyes called a brain that's apparently your mind. But really, who you are is an aspect of the divine experiencing itself. You are the universe experiencing itself. No two perceptions are the same. Therefore, no two lives are the same. Therefore, no two experiences on this planet are the same. So, who are you besides the divine is who you've chosen to be through all of this. But again, your job as a way shower, as a light bearer, as a torch bearer, whatever word you want to use, light work or grid work or whatever the fuck term label feels good for you, is just to be you. Just to know it. Not to go preach it, not to go talk to somebody else in a different community about how their suffering is all in their head, because you know that you suffered. When I was suffering, sorry. Ooh, I don't discredit the fact that I laid in my bed for 2 years straight with so much pain in my body that suicide seemed like the only logical choice, because the medicines that they gave me made me go so insane that I would rather live in pain than take the meds that were causing me to drive without knowing that I was driving, to blackout rage, to have these insane emotional swings. And I'm already a very emotional person. I'm an emotional authority, manifesting generator. Like, yeah, I feel it all super deep. I've been an empath since I was like 4 years old. I feel all of those emotions. So for me to tell you that I was emotionally swinging like that's a lot. Like, it was a lot. It was super manic to super depressed. And as soon as I took the pills, all those side effects went away, but the pain came back. Fibromyalgia is physicalized PTSD. So the way that I was able to actually cure myself of it was not through my body, although I did get tons of body work done, which is the reason why the reason why the transcendental body work I do, the clients see these insane fast results, because when you can do the work, like, I have clients all over the world, and I will tell them, I can't get my hands on you, but while we're working together, if you start getting really good deep tissue structural based, like Rolfing kind of massages on top of what we're doing, you're gonna see faster results, because the trauma is gonna be able to be moved through your physical body as well, which is the densest form of energy, the physical matter. But the next dense one is the emotional realm, and then the mental realm, and then the spiritual realm, which is just pure energy, right? The mental and spiritual are pure energy. Mental a little bit, still a little bit physical, because you're dealing with the synapses of the brain, right? So who you are as the aspect of the divine, Christ, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, Buddha. Sorry. All of a sudden, heaven is a half pike just started singing in my head. Oh, that was funny. If you believe in Jesus, then Muhammad or Buddha too. Um, they did not walk around being like, I am the son of God, bitches. Your pain and suffering don't matter. I understand that you're being murdered. I get that women are being stoned to death. Like, but they chose it. But they chose it. You chose that shit. How is there any compassion in that? How are you being compassionate when you go tell someone whose son has just committed suicide because he didn't think he was worthy of living anymore and life wasn't worthy anymore? How dare you go to them and say, well, you chose the reality in which your son committed suicide. So it's really you're doing. You're the one that's creating all of this. Do you recognize how often this is happening in the community is what I'd like to know. Like, how many people, write it in the comments, interact with me. Starting to feel a little preachy myself right now. Do you see this happening where people are coming in and then saying, I teach sovereignty, so let me talk about how everything's a choice and how all of the racial injustice and um, gender injustice and all of this stuff that goes on, all the injustices of the planet, and they just are like, but none of it's bad. My favorite is it's all a hoax. It's all created bullshit. It's all being made by the Matrix. Whatever, right? There's all this authority, like shoving it over here. There's an agenda, right? But they don't own the fact that they too have suffered greatly. They're just focused on how good their life is now, not explaining the previous. Has anyone been experiencing this? Because like I said, I've unfollowed like 24 people this week because of it. Oh no, I don't know if I can see my comments on my live stream. Okay. So, or I'm going to swing it this way. Or that's the only thing they're talking about is the fact that there's so much injustice, that there's so much um, negative in the world, and that the only way to change it is for you to do the inner work, right? The inner work is absolutely the most important work. I will never, ever, 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 ever say otherwise. But there's so much more that you can do. You can show up. How many people have ever actually thought about running for office? Anyone? Has anyone watching ever thought about running for a public office or being in some sort of state, in some sort of position of power in which you would be a policy creator, a policy maker that could actually affect massive change? Not just being a social influencer, not just being a spiritual entertainer, but actually running for office or that sort of thing, like holding one of those positions. How many? How many of you have thought about doing this? Interesting. How interesting. You know how many people I've ever met in the light worker community and energy healing community that want to actually go and run for office? One. Me. That's it. I tell people all the time that I know I'm going to be a senator and that I know I'm going to be president of the United States. And they say, Caryn, you can never be a president. Look at your posts. Look at what you teach. You talk about dragons all day long. There are nude photos of you all over the internet. Very tasteful nudes. Very artistic nudes. Still nudes. Guess what? That's who I am. That's me. I have a body. You have a body. I'm naked underneath my clothes. You're naked underneath your clothes. I've done some things in my life, right? I've got arrest record. Well, I've never been arrested, but I've got a record, right? I've got some criminal charges, some possession charges, some shoplifting charges, things like that. Yeah, if you were to look on paper and you were to research me, as far as most people are concerned, there's no way I would my political career is already dead in the water. It hasn't even started yet. That is such fucking bullshit that it physically makes me want to punch something because there is so 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 many people who bitch and moan and complain about them, about the system, about the man, about the whole, who how do you what do you guys call it, the Illuminati, right? Like, oh, the Illuminati, the agenda of the deep state. And then they're like, oh, do your inner work. You're going to do this and you're going to get out of it and you're going to be able to see that it's all an illusion. So let me help you. And then these are all people with money. They're all people with privilege. They're all people that have the ability to borrow. Like, they're all fucking white people preaching to a whole bunch of non-white people about how their lives could be heaven on earth if they would just pay $50,000. The average Black American does not have 50 grand to throw at you. So why is the gap still just continuing with racial injustice? Because no one is willing to go into the system, go fucking in it, infiltrate it, black ops status shit, and go change the laws. In America, most of the laws that pertain to the people don't pertain to our legislative body in Congress. They write it in that this doesn't, like, and it's for life. It's not just like for senators that are currently in office. It's anyone who's ever ran and been in office as a senator or representative in the US Congress is exempt from some of these laws. They don't have to pay for the Affordable Care Act. They're exempt. They still get a living salary after they're out of office. So this is no longer public service for just a couple of years. This is the rest of their lives. They're getting paid off by taxes and all of this. And yet, I'll be damned if I've met literally anyone, and I get laughed at. I get laughed at. You're never going to be president. You're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. But let me just pray. Let me just, here, guys, let's astral travel to the Pleiadians today, and that's going to change the world. No, it's fucking not. It's not. Because there's not enough people holding the vibration of who they are as the divine and then going in and actually doing anything besides posting on social media, marching in protests. They're not doing shit. Why? Because they're terrified of getting murdered, getting defamed, of being shamed to death, assassinated, any of this stuff. Our planet will never shift as long as those of us who know the truth of who we are hide behind our keyboards or only show up when people have a pretty penny to put in our hand. Is never going to change until you can decide, you know what? Yeah, I do have clients that pay me this much money. And then I show up and I do donation-based community events, right? That's a huge thing that I've been working on doing actually as I increase, as I am a high ticket coach. I will never discard, like, I make lots of money doing what I do. People pay me lots and lots of money to do it. But I'm also going out there into my community. I'm showing up to my city council meetings. I'm making sure that I'm aware of what's going on in my community. I stay up to date with the news, not so I can judge it, not so I can be like, okay, guys, look, and like post a story on my Insta about, okay, this is a lie and this is the bullshit. And this is like, who cares? We fucking know they're lying to us. How about you get off your pretty little high horse and go do something about it? Go actually be the change you want to see in the world, not by preaching at us, by fucking doing something. Go take your senator to lunch. Go ask them, why do you think that it's okay that you're exempt from all of these laws? Yes, black op light workers. Yes. Who we punching? Oh, who are we punching, Alicia? We're punching anyone who thinks that being a public servant, which is what it is when you run for office, by the way, a servant of the public. Congress doesn't have term limits, all of that. How much the ruling class of our world, 1%, less than 1%. Most of the wealth in this planet belongs to 0.01% of the people on this planet. And yet, there are more self-made millionaires in their 20s than any other demographic. So it is happening. It is changing. It is shifting. But the focus is on the money and not like, what can we do with it? Right? I'm a multimillionaire by the time I'm 28 because I teach law of attraction. I'm going to attract all these things in my life. So here's this self-hypnosis and here's this and here's that. But you again ask, hey, what do you ever think about like going and and running for the treasury board in your county because your county's actually a really poor county. You're so good with money and all of this property taxes are what pay for the schooling system. We could really use someone on the board to help us figure out how we can change this community so that our property taxes go higher so the school system is better. I could never do that. I'm a light worker. I could never do that because I've got some skeletons in my closet that I'm automatically out. There's just no way. You teach how to get rid of limiting beliefs, and yet that's a huge limiting belief in the community because you're weird, because you're a freak, because you talk about dragons or fairies or past lives or Reiki, or you do energy transmissions, or you sing in light language. There's no fucking way that you could actually be of service to the public, not to your clients that pay you 50K, 100K, not to those people who only show up to your live streams, but to the whole planet. One planet under source with liberty and justice for all beings, not just humans, all beings. Because we are all going to ascend on this planet together. We're going to slide through time and space to the fifth dimension. And if you're not able to hold the truth of who you are and hold on to that light and have the crystalline activations and the DNA activations, like go back and watch 2 weeks ago's episode where I talk about the 144,000, those things need to be done or you're not gonna, like, that's part of the ascension. Like you have to get there. But if you know that, like me telling you you have to get there doesn't actually do anything for you, right? That's the reason why I have a business teaching this, right? I still gotta eat, still gotta feed my kids. But the amount of money that I donate to nonprofits, the amount of ways that I'm involved in my community, going and actually, here's a crazy one for you. Are you ready? Teaching the rich and famous about the ascension. Do you know how many people in that community have no fucking clue about the things that so many of us talk about? But then when you look at the pay gap, it's like, okay, most light workers are making $1 million or less a year. And then you go and you look, and there's multi-millionaire and billionaires who, you talk to them about Carl Jung, you talk to them about energy work, and they are more than willing to throw their money at you because you finally have found a way to help them with their own suffering. So many, oh, they don't suffer. They have all this money. They have all this power. How could they suffer? The rich and famous suffer a lot, actually. Maybe not in the same way where you think about their base needs aren't being met, but that's a lot of guilt and shame. I don't know if everyone in Hollywood is Catholic, but they're really good at acting like it because they're guilty as fuck. You can see it, like the energy. When you start being able to read energy and read emotions, you don't even have to ask people how they're feeling. You can literally see it. You can see the jealousy radiating off of them. You can see the guilt radiating off of them, or you can see the joy and the bliss and the happiness. But joy and bliss get boring after eternity. So we've all come here and incarnated as the universe experiencing itself from all these different angles. Oh my gosh. I was sneeze. Hold on. Ooh. Oh, excuse me. As the universe experiencing itself, okay? When we can hold on to the truth of who we are without having to preach it to everyone, we are more able to easily walk into rooms and have conversations that a couple of years ago, there's no way, right? I'll give you an example. Last night, I was at this event. It's a private event. Um, I have made friends with like a lot of the few of the artists here in Salt Lake and a few of the art gallery owners. And I was at this event, and there were all these people there that, like, you drove up. I'm driving my 2003 Jeep Liberty that has like the fenders fucked up, right? I drive past the where I'm supposed to be going to this event, and Ferrari, Lambo, Maserati, like all lined up, and they're fucking beautiful. These are some beautiful pieces of art in the form of an automobile. And I'm like, oh fuck, am I going? And I go there. I'm supporting my friend who was live painting, And I was able to have conversations with people. I didn't care how much money they had. I never even asked. Why would I care? There were some people dressed to the nines. There were some people dressed in jeans and t-shirts. How am I supposed to know who's who? So I'm not going out there searching for my new clients. I'm not out there doing anything except for being me, right? How often do I tell you guys this? Be you. Authentically, fearlessly, weirdly, crazily you. And that's when your life gets to change because you're no longer being programmed by the fact that who you are isn't good enough or is too much. Because not good enough and too much are two sides of the same coin. It's the same limiting belief, just in different ways. I was able to have conversations with people, probably gave my number to a dozen different people, all of them fascinated in my work, all of them fascinated to come get some bodywork sessions. All like I just got invited to one of those. I'm going to a birthday party in like 3 hours with them, with a big group of them. Okay, I never, ever. You would have told me 2 years ago I was going to the birthday party of one of the most um, influential people in this state, and that I was privately invited to it. I would have laughed in your face. But how are you going to get in, right? How are you going to get in to these conversations? How are you going to actually go be able to change the planet when you're too afraid of actually showing up as who you are and owning it and owning the fuck out of it and being able to watch the fucking atrocities on this planet and say, you know what? Our species is addicted to suffering. It is a fucking addiction. Like, load me up right here. Pain and suffering, aisle one. The same way that you don't go tell a junkie that they're addicted to heroin and think that that's going to get them off of heroin, you don't go and tell people who are being brutally murdered in the fucking broad daylight in the most asinine way by the people who have sworn to serve and protect them that they're choosing that. Fuck you to anyone who has made any posts or any sort of even a semblance of telling those people who are addicted to suffering, who are stuck in a story of rage and hate and pain beyond what anyone who was born white could ever fucking imagine. Please know this, you cannot imagine it. You can't even begin to fathom how the BIPOC community feels. And it's absolutely your responsibility, not your black best friend's responsibility. Your responsibility to figure out how you can become less racist, because I promise you, you're a fucking racist. I promise you. There's somewhere in you, in your ancestry, in your beliefs, in your whatever. There's ways for you to research it. There's ways for you to become an advocate and an ally, but you will never know their pain and suffering. Ever. I would never dare compare my pain and suffering to that of my children's godfather, who is half Native American, half African American, and the things that he's gone through in his life. Ever. I could never, ever compare myself to that. But I will hold his hand. I will march with him. And I will go to my city council and ask, why the fuck do we have a tank in one of the most peaceful cities in Utah? Why does our police department have a fucking tank? Why is it that they get brand new trucks every 2 years, but I have to petition for 3 months to get a fucking speed limit sign changed because the cops in their trucks are driving 50, 60 miles down my hill? That's a 35-mile-an-hour hill. I've lived here for 30 years. It's a fucking miracle no one's gotten hit and died on my hill, to be honest. And the people that speed the most down it are the fucking cops that are at the top of it. I will show up to those meetings. I will petition my neighbors. Oh, aren't you that chick that's been smoking weed for the last 10 years in her backyard? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I am. But guess what? This shit's broken. The system is broken. And the only way that it's ever going to change is if those of us who know the truth of who we are and what we are and how we serve get off our asses and go serve and protect ourselves. Go serve the planet. Go protect those who don't yet have the understanding. Again, you don't go to a heroin junkie and say, dude, you're addicted to heroin. And the only way that you're going to get off heroin is if you buy my program. The only way you're going to get off heroin is if we astral project to the great central sun. The only way you're going to get off heroin is if you own the fact that you're choosing to be addicted right now. I don't know how many of you have ever dealt with addicts, but that is literally never gonna fucking work. Can you imagine? Can you imagine me going up to one of my friends who's got a coke addiction and being like, hey, did you know that you're addicted to cocaine? And did you know that that's a choice? They'll be like, first of all, yes, I did know that I had a coke problem. And second of all, it's not a choice, it's the chemicals. It's not a choice, it's the chemicals. Okay? Cortisol is a chemical, it's a stress hormone. There's all these other hormones that start getting pumped into your brain when you're living in the hell on earth part of this story. There's a reason why they're overweight. There's a reason why you don't see overweight, like really unhealthy people who are doing this inner work. Because your body actually starts rejecting things that are bad for you, right? I've been mostly plant based for the last almost 3 years. And my body started rejecting meat, and then it started rejecting dairy, and now I can now I've been able to slowly add it back in. I don't eat it very often. I'm like 95% plant-based, but then I do listen to my body. If I know that I need to go eat a rack of lamb, I'm gonna go fucking buy that lamb, and it's delicious. And it's not gonna affect my body the same way because I've been able to come into an agreement with my body that, you're asking for this. I don't know where else to get it. Here's what I'm craving. So if I eat the thing that I'm craving, my insides, you're gonna be okay with it. You're not gonna fuck me over for the next 3 days. But that took discipline. That's me having conversations with my body. This is why I teach such so much about being, not embodying. I don't embody my higher self. I am the highest version of who I can be in this moment, and I'm always striving for better. I'm always striving to remember more of my truth. I'm always striving to be able to be awake and lucid dream within this dream that I don't ever remember going to sleep, but I woke up from. I'm awake right now, but I don't ever remember going to sleep. And one day I'm going to go to sleep and I'm never going to wake up. I'm just going to go dream a different dream. I'm going to go live a different melodrama called my life. That'll be a different life. Yeah. Yeah. See, Alicia, you're right. My body's rejecting meat and dairy, and you're losing weight effortlessly because there's no density. It doesn't matter. But think about those communities. Overweight communities, you go look at the health. Again, the BIPOC community is very unhealthy. There's a lot of issues within their DNA because of the amount of stress, the unfathomable amount of stress that these people have dealt with for generations. Guess what? My ancestors were also, brutally raped, pillaged, and murdered as a Celtic pagans by the Catholic Church. But that was long enough ago that that's not actually in my epigenetics anymore, which is the reason why you'll never hear me talking about how I'm an indigenous person. We're all indigenous to this planet as far as I'm concerned, but you're never going to hear me say that. Even though, yes, if I were to look at my chart, my history, I have tribes in my ancestry. I've been, I'm like one toenail's worth of some tribe somewhere, I'm sure, in America, because we're all just a big melting pot. But epigenetics go back 14 generation. That's the 1700s. Nobody who has Celtic pagan ancestry is dealing with that trauma in their epigenetics anymore. So fuck you to those of you who have been doing that too. You guys, I don't get this ragey very often, guys, but it is going to take a will that is wise, devout, wrathful, resolute to lead the spiritual revolution and help humanity cure their addiction to suffering. So the wrathful comes out every now and then. Devout, the devotion to who I am. Who I am. I'm not afraid of cancel culture. I'm not afraid of being murdered or assassinated if I run for office. I'm not afraid of fucking anything because I know that this is an illusion. But I will never, ever, ever go tell my kid's godfather that it's a fucking illusion that he went to federal prison for drugs and that he chose it. Now, if he comes into that understanding himself, I will have a conversation with him. If I'm able to help him by having conversations with him, if I'm able to help him by sitting with him while he's getting off of heroin and coming down off of all the Oxycontins, which I have done. And in that time, he's able to come to a realization on his own that he's been choosing this reality and that he absolutely has the power to change it. You bet your ass I'll be right there. I'll hold his hand. I will help him on the crazy journey known as the ascension and the Kundalini awakening, because that's literally what I do. Most of my clients, again, I have clients all different demographics, of all different demographics. Like, choose a demographic and I promise you I've worked with someone in it. Rich people, poor people, colored, like BIPOC, queer, all of it. Like everyone. I don't have a niche that way because my niche is the human race. Because all I want you to remember, I want you to remember it. I can't preach it to you. That's why I don't try. I tell you I know, I show up 30, 60 minutes once a week. We have a great conversation. I give you my perspective of how I experience the universe through myself right now. But I'm not going to tell you that that's the way you're going to do it, or you're going to go to hell, or that you're already living in hell. So, and that was a choice that you made. And as soon as you buy my course, you're going to learn how to not be in hell anymore, because I'm going to teach you how to do all these things that is going to help. I would do that anyway. I would do what I'm doing right now and never make another dollar for the rest of my life, and I would still fucking do it because this is who I am. I am a social advocate for the human race. The human race that includes many ethnicities and many cultures, but it's still only one race. It's one species. When you know who you are, your job is not to go preach it. Your job is to be it, to show up as you, authentically and fearlessly you, knowing that you are God, manifested in physical form, here to radiate your own unique frequency and experience and be the universe experiencing it itself. That is your only fucking job. I've told you that for like a few months now. That's it. You don't need to go teach. You don't need to do anything. You just have to be the light. Be the light. That's what last week's was. Being the infinite light. The light source, the lighthouse on the hill that can't go down there and like save anybody. You're not here to save the world. You're here to change it. I'll say that again. You're not here to save the world. You're here to change the world. Those are totally different energies. Those people that go out to save the world, guess what? They are the ones that usually get martyred, because that's what martyrdom is like all about. So let's recap. Let's bring it back. Feeling good. Feeling like ready to really like put a nice little neat bow on it. Why we do the inner work, why we go through the astral projections, why we go through our past lives, why we do the epigenetics, why we work with the quantum realm, why we're doing law of attraction manifestation, why we do all of this is simply because that's what gods do. Eternal bliss got boring. We incarnated as humans, forgot that we were God. And the awakening, the waking up, the getting woke, all of those people that are like, I'm woke AF, they don't fucking get it. You know, some of them might, kind of. But in the West, it's a lot harder. Because if you walk up to someone in the West and you're like, I'm God, they're like, blasphemy. But if you walk up to someone in India and you're like, today I woke up and I found out that I was God, they'd be like, congratulations, I'm so glad that you finally figured that out. So it's a cultural thing. So we do this work, we do the inner work, we do the shadow integrations, right? Understanding that I am a racist, I am a narcissist, I am a murderer, I am all these things. I am everything that is duality. I am all of it duality. I am the whole universe in a body. I can't be one without being the other. I can't be sovereign without also knowing that I'm a slave in some way. But I can choose sovereignty more easily when I'm given the option of it and I'm able to move away from the addictions in my brain and the chemical reactions going on and the stress and all of this stuff. That is what changes your life, because you're actually changing your physical experience. When you're no longer in pain, you're able to then start thinking about things a little bit more. You're be able to go work out. You're able to go take care of yourself because you're not thinking about the pain all the time. But when you can't get out of it, and the only thing that ever happens is every once in a while you watch I don't know, some motivational speaker talk about how good their life is, and then you go put all of your savings into their course, and then it doesn't work for you, that's the shit that's just not okay as far as I'm concerned. It's nothing that's wrong with you. It's the way that the person was teaching you. They weren't showing up for you. They weren't, there's some integrity thing. Every person who's ever even watched a live stream has a positive change within them based on my frequency that I admit, because I hold that channel so hard, right? And even if they're pissed, even if my inbox gets filled with hate messages after this, guess what? They are still changing for the better, because they're actually having to sit there and ask some questions. You're actually having to like take the time to message me, right? And I'll read them and it's fine. It's not going to affect my worth. I'm not going to think I'm less worthy if someone starts doing any of that stuff, right? Like, I literally have been reading about this idea of cancel culture, and it does not compute to me. It doesn't compute to me that people feel so low, and yet it does, because I remember it, right? So like, it doesn't compute right now, but if I take a second and take a deep breath and like step back into my histories, like pull up those files in my brain, I can totally see how 3 years ago cancel culture would have been the end for me. Like, just the end. I wouldn't even have been able to start getting on live streams if I didn't start building up the confidence, right? You have confidence. You're able to hold yourself with a crown on your head. You're able to walk around knowing that you are a living god or goddess here on this planet. But you're not preaching it to people, you just are. And then you have conversations. Everything's just a conversation. And in that conversation, maybe you're helping someone. And when someone comes to you and says, I require your help, I request your help, I request your services, then yes, absolutely, you go charge for them. But then you also have your community events, and you actually go out and do something in your community. And you actually, I don't know, run for fucking public office. Anybody who is living in a country that has any sort of democratic process to it, where the common person can go run for office, if you have the awareness and the knowledge of pure divinity within you, then it's your sacred duty to go be the change you want to see in the world. And that starts with being someone who changes the policies, who changes the way that the rules are written, who's able to show up and be all that they preach to be, not just be a preacher who's doing the dirty in the back room after telling you not to do it while he was standing at the pulpit. Because that's most, again, it sucks because I am a part of this community and I hate to say it, but it's true. That's where most light workers are. If you were to actually look at their numbers, their actual take home, right? Like, oh, I just signed a 100K client, but I spent 60K on coaching, and then I had to spend 20K on this. So when you actually look at the actual profit, then maybe they made like $8,000. But it's being shown to you, oh, look, 100 grand, 100 grand, 100 grand, right? Oh, I just had my first 100K month. And then you go look at their back numbers, and they only have $12,000 in their bank account, because running their business and doing all this other stuff costs more. So they're still playing. They're still fucking lying to you. They're still putting on a facade. They're still doing everything that they bitch and moan about them doing, the Matrix and the Illuminati and blah, 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 is still being done, because no one's willing to go and be different and be fully fucking transparent and be fearlessly, authentically like anybody. I will invite you right now to send me an email, and I will send you at hello@superconsciousleaders.com, and I will send you my books if you're that curious. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of them. because I know who I am as a fractal of the divine, manifested in form, experiencing life by singing my own song, writing my own story, and I get to rewrite my story whenever. But that does not ever, once, never give me the right to go start rewriting someone else's story for them, or going and telling everyone that they're addicted to pain and suffering, or going and telling them that they chose the pain that they're dealing with in their life. When they figure that out later, hell yeah, we'll have some green tea, we'll do some breath work, we'll have the conversation. But you have to remember it yourself. That's it. You get to remember it yourself. You get to choose if you want to remember it yourself. Maybe this lifetime isn't a lifetime where you remember that. That's fine. And maybe life gets so hard that it's just not worth living anymore. And you do decide that you're going to go commit suicide or something. And guess what? Yes, it is still a choice. You have every right to do that. But that's something that I know. And I would never go and tell someone else that doesn't know that that's what happened when their kid committed suicide, or that they chose to have their sister murdered in broad daylight. Don't teach sovereignty that way, guys. Just don't. Just stop. Seriously, just stop. Sovereignty doesn't exist without slavery. Hot doesn't exist without cold. Pain doesn't exist without pleasure. This is a dualistic. There's a reason why I do the thing with the incense, right? Bringing all polarities into the singularity. Because when you can look at the polarities and look at how they're actually just two sides of the same coin, you're able to more easily say which side of that coin do you want to be presenting to the world. Not that you don't know that you're also able to have the other side within you, but you're choosing the frequency of the other side. So you have the law of polarity still happening, but you're able to change the pendulum swing a little bit, right? You're not going all the way down into this space anymore. You're able to, pretty for the most part, stay over here. But even within your bliss consciousness, people have good and bad days, right? Even within your bliss consciousness, shit's gonna happen in your life that you weren't expecting. Why? Because it's more fun that way, guys. It's just more fun that way. It's just more fun to not know what's going to happen. It's just more fun to be like, oh no, this person's just out of my life forever. They just ghosted me. And then all of a sudden, 40 days later, they're like calling you up and thanking you for a referral you gave them. And then they're back in your life. And you're like, the fuck? What's what happened? What about? It's more fun. Bliss, eternal bliss gets boring. So we come to this planet and we experience it. And some of us wake up to the knowledge that we're just playing a game, and some people don't. But if you know that you're playing the game, you have no, no authority in anyone else's life at all. You're not responsible for anyone else, and you don't have authority over anyone else. That's all you. But you do have a sacred duty to show the fuck up. This is not Salem. You're not going to get burned at the stake. This is not even the 1990s where everyone's going to call you woo woo. Or early 2000s, I guess that was still a term too. This is the golden age of miracles. This is the age of Aquarius. This is where the light workers have been waiting to be. So where the fuck are you? It's an off-year election. That means that all of the country, all of the counties in all of this country, I can't speak to other countries. I can only speak to America. Have offices running this year, local offices, state offices, city councils, things like that. You want to actually be the change you want to see in the world? You want to actually change this planet? Go serve as a public servant. Go start having community based events that are donation based only, that you literally might walk away and owe money to the venue and not have made any of it. And that's okay because you were able to speak to 100 or 200 people that maybe don't have the internet, right? I've gotten in connection with a few people who are helping in the prisons and helping women. They start about 3 to 6 months before the women get out of prison, and they help them. Also, people who are sex slaves, all these things, and they're wanting me to come to the prisons and start teaching. Like they're trying to get transcendental meditation in the prison so that they can start raising their vibration. So when they leave and go to the halfway house and have a job, they're not just immediately still running the same chemicals in their brain. Suffering is an addiction, and you can see it by the chemicals in the brain. Same way Coke is an addiction in its chemicals, right? Same way heroin, all of it. Addiction or suffering is an addiction. But you don't go tell an addict to get off of it by telling them that they're addicted or to tell them that they're choosing to be addicted. You go and you give them other tools. You be the example. You show them, guess what? I was a suffering addict too. Here's my story. Just like any good sponsor and any good AA or NA or any of that would do, right? Yeah, I have broken my addiction to suffering. Absolutely. I'm not addicted to it anymore. I still suffer sometimes, but then I'm able to laugh at it. I'm able to be like, damn, please, someone hire my higher self in Hollywood because this bitch is a great writer. Oh my God, I was not expecting this in the story called My Life. It's great. But 5 years ago, I couldn't do that. 3 years ago, I couldn't do that. 2 years ago, I was barely getting it. Last year, I was kind of getting it. And here we are now, and it's like fully clicked in and integrated. So if you're someone who's watching this and they're like, I kind of get it, but I kind of don't, just keep going. Just keep going. Do your inner work. Do your integrations. Figure out how you can show up in more ways than just being a keyboard warrior. Figure out how you can do more than just the base, right? Like, oh, I made a sign and I held it up on my Instagram stories, but I didn't actually go to the march, right? Again, this is what I mean. Like, they can just show you a little bit of what they're doing. Like, oh, look it, I'm gonna show all these stories and be like, and this guy's and this thing about the and this thing about the, and this thing about this and this and this. But when you go and ask them, like, well, what have you done about it? They're like, oh, well, yeah, my husband got the and I'm not gonna get it, but blah blah blah. So they're talking mad shit, but then they're still sleeping in the same bed with someone that doesn't have the same beliefs as them about it. Which is not even required to have the same beliefs, but it looks pretty fucking hypocritical to those of us who know it. Like, what do you mean you're talking all this shit and yet you're still, what the, like, literally, this doesn't add up. Or they do all of that and then never go to a march. Or they do all of that and they don't even know who the fuck their senator is. Do you know that most people in this country don't even know who their fucking senator is? Most people have never gone to a city council meeting. They don't even know when the city council meetings are. And then they have the audacity to bitch, moan, and complain about the fact that the system is fucked. The system is fucked, guys. We know it already. Go do something about it. Go take inspired action. I don't care what you're inspired to do right now. Writing a letter. I take my city councilwoman out to lunch a couple of times a year to make sure that we're connected. Um, is now that the legislative body is out of session, I'll probably start reaching out to my representatives and taking them out to lunch as well, right? Really showing up during the sessions and going and having a conversation, not just talking to the senators, going and finding the lobbyists here in Salt Lake and getting to know them too, right? There is so much you can do. Writing the judges, reaching out to the local chapters of the your favorite nonprofit, right? Reaching out to companies to find out if they'd be willing to give donations for your event that you're putting on, that they might have resources to help other people. There is so much you could do besides getting on your live streams 7 times a week. Like some of these people, I come once a week. There are people that are like getting on to hour, 90-minute lives 4 fucking times a week, saying the same shit on fucking repeat, charging thousands and thousands of dollars to go to do their courses, and yet they're not doing jack shit in the actual real world. Oh, their vibes are higher. I'm not saying in a metaphysical way that they're not being the light and they're not shifting the planet that way. Because I get that. I talk about that all the time. Again, I went to this party. I had people walking up to me. I knew one person. No, I knew, I knew one person who was my friend. I'd met 2 other people before at previous events. And that's it in a room of 50 to 60 people. And I had a dozen or more of them come up to me and be like, I just got to talk to you. Like, you are so fucking magnetic. Like, I don't even know who you are, or your dress is beautiful, or oh my God, you can fucking own it. So I had 3 people want to touch my head. right? Because it's like, holy shit, you're a chick and you're so sexy and you're, oh my God, right? But I was just me. I was wearing one of my favorite dresses. I was dressed up. I was at a party. It was a wine tasting, live music. It felt so good and so normal to be out amongst people. And you could tell the people that were looking at me weird. You could tell the people that were like, who is this chick? And none of them came up and talked to me. And I wasn't even thinking about them, but you could feel it like if they existed in the room. By actually getting off of your high horse and coming and meeting and mingling with the commoners, which is again not something that a lot of the high profile people that you follow on Instagram or social media, they don't do it. They stay in their fancy multi-million dollar houses collecting their $100,000 checks, preaching to you from far away, and they don't do jack shit in the actual community at all. That is what needs to change. Owning who you are, owning the truth of who you are as an aspect of the divine manifested in physical form here to radiate a sovereign frequency of pure love and light needs to be in the system, needs to be in the places where policies are made, needs to be able to go in there and say, fuck you, cancel culture. Fuck you, everyone trying to rape me through the mud. Fuck you for giving a shit about my history. This is who I am. The choices that I made when I didn't know who I am still happened, but my worth is no longer attached to them. That's for a whole nother live stream. But if you take nothing else away from today, take this away. You are the universe experiencing itself. And if there are things in this world that you don't like that experience, you're sick and tired of watching young men and women be brutally murdered by the people who have sworn to serve and protect them, then you have the opportunity to choose a different reality by going and being the change you want to see in the world and actually showing up and serving and protecting this planet as true earth warriors, which is what every single super conscious leader is, which is every single one of you who's watching this live stream on the live or on the replay. Okay, I love you all. I need to go get ready for this birthday party. I've got a bunch of announcements coming up, but I'm not going to do any of them yet. Super excited about the changes that are shifting in my own reality over here and how I'm going to be able to start showing up and doing the things, being all that I preach to be. And I hope that this was it was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of stuff that we talked about, but share it out to your friends. Make sure that this message is getting places because it's one of the most important messages I think that the light worker and energy healing life coaching community could hear right now. Because there's a lot of things that are broken and we actually have the ability to change it because we can see it, right? We've broken our addiction to suffering. Let's go help out all those junkies. Okay. I love you. Have a beautiful day.